This meeting is being recorded.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another installment of Pit Pass Network interviews. Today, we are joined by Trey Burke, driver in the USAC Silver Crown Series and in the USF Pro Championship Series, which is an open wheel series, which is the third step on the road to Indy ladder system. So, thanks for joining us, Trey.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Yeah, so I guess we'll get right into it. So, I guess season's probably wrapping up for you soon, but how would you assess your races thus far this season and in all of your series you've been participating in?
Yeah, so I guess I'll kind of start out with the Silver Crown. It was a very good first year for me. We finished 10th overall in the standings. And I'd never really been to a lot of these tracks, actually, most of them. I think maybe one or two I'd actually been to. So having to show up and kind of figure it out, they don't really give you much time to practice. And I'm a bigger dirt guy than I'm a pavement guy. So, especially with the ovals, that, it took me a little bit longer to get used to. But yeah, I think we had a really good year. I learned a lot, and I'm super excited for everything that I have learned, and all the new techniques I've picked up, and even the people I've met. So I think Silver Crown wise, I think I should always do better. So if you ask me, I didn't probably do as good as I should have. But then when you kind of step back and look at the bigger picture, we're right where we need to be. So in terms of that, I think it's, going pretty well.
Yeah, it's very awesome, I guess, and then recap your USF Pro Championships.
Yeah, so I did that a little bit this year at the beginning of St. Pete for Future Star Racing, and I have done it as well for Joe Dueling Auto Sports the previous 2 years with a one-off Indy Pro race at Gateway with three. But this year we did St. Pete. We were hoping to do a little bit more, but things just didn't line up that way. We started off really well. I think the whole weekend we were pretty much in the top 10. I should have finished fourth or fifth in the first race. We just had a shot cover come off and kind of almost got me in the head and blocked my view right as we were going through a corner. And, a couple cars got around me, but it happens. We were really quick, and considering we didn't really get much practice time at all, we just kind of showed up, and it was, I think, maybe my second time in the car. Um, it was good. It was really good progress, and a lot of people definitely opened their eyes when we were running up front.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned how much you had like limited practice time. How much was that like before a race?
So I know that because it was the season opener, we did go to Sebring and we got a couple 30-minute sessions. But we basically used that time to shake down the car. So, nothing too serious in terms of, trying to pick up speed. And then at St. Pete, if I can remember right, I'm pretty sure it's just one 20-minute practice session and then like a 20-minute qualifying, and then the qualifying sets the order for the first and second race. So you definitely got to be on it.
Yeah, for sure. I guess that shows a lot of resilience in you just because coming into like not that much practice coming into the race, like that must be really challenging, but you persevered. Got mentioned you had like a top five finish earlier, so and
Yeah.
then so So you're a fourth generation racer, so your racing history goes way back. So I guess um what series in racing did your generation before you racing?
Yeah. So it started with my great grandfather and then worked down to my grandfather and then my dad. Um, and a couple other family members branching off. But my dad, he did a lot of USAC midget stuff. Um, he's from we're all from just south of Houston, so he couldn't make the travel up to the Midwest that often. But when he did a lot of USAC midgets, some power rise stuff. At one point, he had a wings sprint car, so 360 with like ASCS. Um, and my grandfather was really big with the midgets and Silver Crown. Um, he grew up racing kind of with AJ Foyt. Did a lot of Oklahoma, Texas, lots of dominance, I guess, in the midgets. Um, and then he would venture out, and run some Silver Crown stuff as well. Um, my great grandfather, when he was running, I mean, it was so early on that uh, classes hadn't really developed yet, um, and he was a really good fabricator. If anything, I know he was an awesome race car driver, but he helped build one of the first Indy Roadsters for the speedway here. So um, I guess they would call them midgets back then, but everything was just kind of a run what you brung kind of deal. So uh, yeah, that's what he did.
Yeah, that sounds very cool. Like, it sounds like the most common form of racing that your past history of family have raced in is like dirt racing. So would you say dirt racing is probably like your favorite form of racing right now?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, dirt racing to me, there's nothing like it. It's what I grew up on. It's what most of my family has ran um, for the majority of their entire careers. So, I think dirt racing is the best. It's just unfortunately, I'm trying to get to NASCAR. So, NASCAR needs you to have some pavement oval experience. And that's really what we were trying to focus on this year and what we're going to keep working on in the coming years.
Yeah, for sure. What is it about dirt racing uh that like sparks you and makes you like it a lot?
Yeah, I think it's the fact that it's more driver. In this day and age of racing, money is just a huge factor, and it was really apparent on the road to Indy stuff with the USF Pro Championships that if you don't have a good car, you can't do anything about it, right? If the setup's off, the setup's off. Where on dirt, you can kind of outdrive the issue, right? If it starts to push or something, you can maybe flick it in a little harder, slow it down a little more. You have a lot more room to work with to make your car go faster, even if you should really only have about a fifth or sixth place finish. You might be able to, work your way up a little more from that.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember watching one of your videos on your website with dirt racing. You said that like even like every lap like the track changes. So would you say that's really a cool part of it too?
Yeah, for sure. The track is changing, all night. No two laps will ever be the same. And even if you come back, just because there's different factors, I know that if I go out to IRP in Brownsburg, the pavement oval, it's it's going to be relatively the same, in terms of what line I'm going to run and what my breaking points are. Where dirt track's going to change all the time, and you have to be able to adapt to that pretty quickly.
Yeah, for sure. And then you also mentioned earlier that your goal is to be in NASCAR long term. So I guess you made your NASCAR debut last season at Mid Ohio with Young's Motorsports.
Mhm.
So I guess how'd that opportunity come about for you?
Yeah, so I'm really good friends with Sage Karam. He's ran the Indy 500 a whole bunch of times, and he ended up being my driver coach for the USF Pro Championships. And so me and him got really close together, because it was just me, as I didn't have a teammate. And when he kind of made the transition to NASCAR himself, I remember he had an Xfinity race in Atlanta, and he called me and said, "Hey, this truck team wants me to run for them." Talking about Sage, but he couldn't do it, so he threw my name out there. And this was like super last minute. I think we had about a week and a half notice, um, and so definitely Sage Karam is the leading factor on the truck race.
Yeah, for sure. And then stock car racing is definitely a lot different than like dirt track racing and open wheel. So how do you adjust with that? Like so little time to prepare as well.
Yeah, they are very different. I know I like iRacing, but I'm not a big fan of it. So I know a lot of people use iRacing. Thankfully, I'd already been to Mid Ohio with the USF cars, so I did know the layout. I raced there a couple times, so I didn't have any trouble with that. And then as far as the stock car goes, I relied on Sage a lot. He done so many more races, on the road courses that I was probably on the phone with him every day or so, just bouncing ideas, picking his brain, and he was so open for it. He wanted me to do good. And a lot of the techniques, in form of, braking and throttle application are the same that you would in like a road course car. But, the thing is big. It doesn't want to turn. It doesn't really want to stop and then it gets on the power and it's on it. So that I just kind of had to figure out on my own. But, you know, I had a lot of outside help.
Yeah, for sure. And then you mentioned Sage Karam. He's a experienced IndyCar driver, more at IndyCar primarily than NASCAR. But how did you guys meet? Like how did he become your coach?
So I have a very good family friend of ours named Jessica Davis. She's been in racing for a long, long time, and her brother Marty is a really big sim racer, and so is Sage. And I know that they're in a lot of leagues together, and they do a lot of stuff together. And so uh, it's just kind of knowing the right people at the right time. We had told Jessica, who told her brother. And he kind of reached out to Sage and was like, "Hey, I know you've never really done this before, but if you're looking to, we'd love to, give it a try because that's just kind of one of those deals where you don't know unless you do it." So, and he was awesome. We had him at Road America was the first time in 2021, and we had a blast, and we really got along well. And he broke everything down in a way that was super easy for me to understand.
Yeah, it's very awesome having just someone like because you're still really young, so just having someone help you like that is really awesome. So, um, so I saw on your website that you have a cool logo. The
Mhm.
colors in your logo are of red, black, and off-white signify intensity and fire, and
Yeah.
scream passion, energy, love, desire, and determination. Where would you say you get all those characteristics from?
Ooh. Um, Definitely it's developed over the years. I know that, in terms of, family wise, my dad's done this. He's, you know, passed down a lot of the traits. But I've discovered a lot of them on my own as well. This is a rough sport. This is definitely not for the weak, and you definitely have to know that you want it, and I do. But I think just over time, you've all the heartbreak and the roller coaster of emotions. Um, it's just kind of helped me, I guess, find out more of who I am as a person.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, racing, I definitely can tell like with the other drivers I interviewed before, it's like a grind. So yeah, I can definitely see that. And then also on your logo, there are two Fs and and then they combine to form a T. The backward F looks back at the rich family. So family starts with F, history in racing, while the forward F represents the future, that word starts with an F of racing for you, and the Burks and when the two Fs combine, they form a T for your name, Trey.
Hmm.
Then in the background of your logo, there's a hidden bird's eye view of a piston, which is a moving component used to transfer the force from the gas to the crankshaft to turn the wheels. The three lines in your name unified together makes an E, which symbolizes that you are Trey the third. So I just explained a lot from that I found on your website of your logo. So I guess explain more in detail the meaning of that.
Yeah, with the logo, that's if you look at them, I guess Formula One would be a good example. You probably know like Lewis Hamilton's if you saw it, but I know with a lot of people, if you kind of gave me three mock-ups and said, "Hey, which one is theirs?" Nothing jumps out at me, right? You want something that when somebody looks at it, they go, "Yep, that is Trey Burke, or that is Sage Karam," and we had a lot of help with designing that, but I wanted something that it's not just me, because it's not racing is a sport that it takes a village, it takes a lot of people, and the majority of those people are my family, so I like to recognize that and let people know that this isn't just me. It's not just my name. I'm not the only Burke. I'm definitely not the only Burke racer. So, and then as well with the future, I'm looking to have a long, prosperous career in racing. Um, right now, looking good for that. But you got to keep the grind. You got to keep your head down and keep it going. I like the piston. I know when we did it, some people were kind of skeptical about it, but it's cool. I like it. It's kind of hidden. One of those where if you like see it, it's there, but it's nothing that kind of takes your eye away from everything else, and it blends really well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the just all those details in that logo and like details that you have to like think about too, like makes it really unique. And then at the age of 14, you won the IMCA National Sprint Car Rookie of the Year in 2019. So I guess explain the feelings like of achieving that because you're only a 14-year-old. Like, so I guess explain that the feelings of that.
Yeah, that was my 2019 was my first year in sprint cars, and down in the Texas Oklahoma area, 305 wing sprint cars are king. They're everywhere. They're affordable. There's a lot of really good tracks for them in the area, and obviously a lot of other places run them as well. But as far as sprint car racing in Texas goes, that's kind of the premier thing to do. And it was probably about a third of the way through the season. And my mom has this funny thing of she'll make a spreadsheet, and she's an accountant, so she's really good with numbers. And she did the math and kind of went on crunch time and figured out that we could win this. We didn't even really go into the year looking for anything specific, just experience. But I know that once we figured, mathematically out that we could do it, we definitely got to work. Lots of 2 day, 3 day weekends. To end the year, it was actually close. We tied for points, but I had one more win than second place. And these guys are all adults, by the way. I'm by far the youngest one out there, and it's not even close. And I like that. That's one of my issues with this road to Indy stuff is that everybody's the same age. I'm not used to that. I'm used to kind of being the younger one, and I like it more because I can use that to my advantage, right? I have all these guys with so much experience around me that, you know, learn from them, right? These guys are the best for a reason. And, you should use that to your advantage. Uh, but, winning that was huge. It put me on the map a lot more and opened up a lot of people's eyes for, who I am and what we can do.
Yeah, for sure. And you explained like the how pretty much everyone that you raced with was a different age. So I guess how did you like race at the age of 14 in a series like that?
Um, it's kind of funny, but actually experienced because I'd done something similar before. So before sprint cars, I ran micro sprints. It's a 600cc motorcycle engine, and it's just like a sprint car but smaller. It's got the wings. You can take them off or put them on, and that's against adults as well. And I started doing that when I was about 11 or 12. So um, actually, because I was able to kind of call upon the previous experience of I've already been here before. I've done this, you know, for a whole 2 years, before I even ran the sprint cars. So it was easier for me then, just because I'd done it. I know when I first did it and with the micros, it was different, because you kind of have to realize that these guys are going to treat you as if you're a grown man, and you have to get your elbows out, and you get pushed around a little bit and you got to push back, or you're not going to make it, and you're just going to fall down and prove to everybody why kids shouldn't be racing with adults. So it's tricky, but it helps build the good mindset.
Yeah, for sure. And then you mentioned you had a win during your rookie year. You had one win, and that actually broke the tiebreaker with the other fellow
I had
rookie.
three. Yeah, I had three, and he only had two.
Oh,
So
okay, three
uh,
over two. Um,
so yeah, that was big. I know two of the wins actually came on back-to-back nights, and it was about 400 miles apart. We had just one at Wichita Falls in Texas, and then Texas is big, and so we drove, like 300 or 400 miles, farther south for another race on Saturday with a completely different series and a different group of guys, and we were able to get that done as well.
Yeah, it's very cool. And then earlier this year, actually it was just a couple weeks ago, you made your sprint car debut on pavement at Anderson Speedway in
hmm
Indiana. So I guess how was that adjustment going from dirt to pavement in a sprint car?
It's good. I've mentioned, Sage Karen was kind of the road to Indy guy for me, and now I'm starting to get a little closer with Cody Swanson, who's the guy for Silver Crown and sprint car stuff, and he's awesome. He's helped me out a lot. He's the one that helped me get this ride, and kind of helped me come to grips with the car. But the sprint cars are good. I think the I'd been to Anderson a whole bunch to watch. I have a bunch of friends that race out there all the time, but it was obviously different, being in it. And but I liked it. I adjusted well. I didn't qualify very good, but that's kind of something I've always struggled with. But with the long races, I've learned from Silver Crown, if you can finish the race, you're going to finish well, which is exactly what we did. I think I went 21st to 10th. So, not my best finish, but certainly not my worst. And I'm glad for the experience.
Yeah, for sure. And I mentioned it was a pavement track. And then I remember you said like NASCAR is what you want to do in
hmm
the future. Um, so I guess you wanted to like do some of this to try to adjust to more of a NASCAR style race, I guess.
Yeah, correct. I can do the dirt stuff, no problem. But and now I can, get the road course. I got more confidence on that. But kind of the last box to tick is the most important one, and that's the pavement oval. So I know the Silver Crown's good. We go to some really fast tracks, Winchester and Gateway. Probably the fastest. And so I have some buddies, that are in the NASCAR system that have kind of told me what I need to run and what needs to happen on our side of things. And the path is going well. It's definitely not easy, but we're making good progress.
Yeah, it's very awesome. Um, and then also earlier this year at Cotton Bowl Speedway in the Southern United Sprint Car Series, you actually won that race from starting last. So I guess walk me through that race and how long you had to get from last to first.
Yeah, hot laps went well. This is my granddad's car, so he's kind of switched to a car owner now, and he's had a couple different people drive it. My uncle drives it when he can, but he works a lot, and so uh, he let me hop in it at Cotton Bowl, and we got wrecked in the heat race, which is why we had to start the back of the feature, and it happens. It's unfortunate, but feature time rolls around and the track's getting pretty slick up to the fence, with not much of a cushion, and I like that. That's definitely one of my strong suits. And Brad Bennick with Momentum Shocks was the crew chief, as was in 2019. He's a huge part of why we won that, and I trust him. If he tells me to do something, there's not many people that I won't second guess or doubt it. And I know 100% if Brad tells me to go up there and run against the wall and that the car will stick, I know it'll stick. And that's exactly what happened. And, I love that. I love running up top. It's a great group of guys, the SUS series as a whole. I know they're clean. So I was, kind of able to squeak by some people, and it was awesome. It was a great night.
Yeah, you mentioned ripping the high lane. I was thinking because NASCAR, if you get or like with NASCAR, if you get into some of them soon, with the Homestead in Miami that this past weekend, like I feel like that would probably be one of your favorite tracks.
Yeah, for sure. I'm a big fan of the fast ones. A Gateway was really fun with the Silver Crown car, and anything fast. I know Devil's Bowl recently shut down, but it's a fast half mile with the sprint cars. You're really not lifting the whole time, and I've never really struggled on the faster tracks. So for sure, if I can get Daytona, Homestead, Talladega, I think we'll think will be really good.
Yeah, for sure. And then on your Instagram, um, you said that the Dirt Track Illinois State Fairgrounds
Mhm.
gave you the most fun driving a race car to date. So I guess what was it about that track that made it so fun for you?
It was the biggest dirt oval I'd ever been on. It was in the Silver Crown car, and especially in practice, the track was really good, and it was clean. It had a lot of grip on it, and you were able to go pretty much wide open the whole time around, and it's a long corner, so you're drifting for a long time, and there's not much of a fence on the inside, just kind of a little guardrail, and there's spectators and photographers pretty much leaning over the wall, that they could probably reach out and touch the car. So it's a very surreal experience going that fast, and then having so much stuff going on, and I love it. It's just part of the racing that I really enjoy. So I can't wait to go back there, as well as DeCoin, and hopefully we'll do a little better. But yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, that sounds really fun to rip around. The would you say like that track in DeCoin would probably be like the super speedway tracks of dirt racing, you would think?
For sure, yeah, they are. Only Silver Crown goes there. No other series really run there, especially in USAC. The non-wings and the midgets definitely don't run there. So, yeah, if you can do good at the mile dirt tracks, you've got a good thing going for you on the dirt side of things. And yeah, that's it's different. It's definitely different from any of the dirt racing I've ever done, just because it's so much bigger, and it's in a different car. You don't really get to test other than the race weekend. And again, that's probably I think like a 30-minute practice session, and then you hop into qualifying. So they definitely keep it going and don't give you much time to learn.
Yeah, for sure. And then going back into 2021, you took a big tumble at Tulsa where your car went in the air and such. So what was that experience like? Was that the first time you flipped in a car?
Oh, no. Is that the micro sprint? Yes. Yeah, that wasn't my first time. That was definitely one of my harder hits. Um, but that's the expo center. That's Tulsa and the Chili Bowl are both notorious for that. But if you're not up on it, trying to make those passes, then it's just not going to happen. That one did hurt, but the nature of that, then we kind of had to. I knew I was back on track in probably 2 hours, so I remember my mom gave me some medicine, and I kind of just took a nap in a lawn chair, and you don't feel it till a couple days later. But at that point, when you're on track, adrenaline takes over, and you don't even know you're hurting or you're sick, and so it hurt, but nothing too crazy.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Chili Bowl. It's probably like the biggest dirt track race to win. One of them or the Knoxville Nationals. So I guess I think I remember seeing that you've raced there before in the micros, I think.
Yes, yeah. So I did. I've been a couple times with the micros, and the restrictor class. I made the A main. Actually, I think I finished like 16th or something, and that's out of a couple hundred cars. Um, and we've had multiple other attempts in A class. Just yeah, that place is a lot of luck. And if you can even make the B and the A main, you've had a good week. Um, and we've been close. It's just I don't do it enough to stay consistent. Like some of these guys that do it every year and other races as well.
Yeah, for sure. And then I know you like dirt a lot. Were you sad to see the news that Bristol Dirt's not in the schedule anymore?
Yeah, yeah. I know it's I think that race was always really good. I'd like to see the trucks go back to Eldora. That was always really fun to watch. Um, and it's disappointing, but hopefully I know I have a couple years before I get there, so by then they'll have something figured out, and if not Bristol, someplace else.
Yeah, I feel like Eldora was one of was a great start spot for the dirt racing. I remember NASCAR first came to dirt back to dirt in like 2013 or something for trucks at Eldora, and that brought out a show every year. So I don't know why they left, but that was really cool. That Eldora was definitely one of my favorite races to watch. Um,
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I'm a big Eldora fan. That was my first time racing there. Was at the end of the year with the Silver Crown. It was the last dirt race a couple weeks ago. Um, we did all right. We definitely missed the setup a little bit, but that's just how it is. Those races are so long that you have to be perfect, um, and that's just part of the learning experience. Um, and of course, we didn't actually do that bad, but for me, we did, and that's just kind of the pains of being in the driver's seat. Is after the race, I always kind of overanalyze everything, and I'm like, well, maybe I could have done this different, or I should have done this different, and we would have had a little better of an outcome. But that's just how the learning process goes.
yeah, for sure. And then I mentioned earlier, Chili Bowl's a big one to win, and then the Knoxville Nationals. Have you ever participated in that one?
Um, I tried a couple years ago. I was 15, and it was really weird because you know, I guess not applied, but we told them we were coming. We got on the list to race, and we get there to get pit passes, and you have to be 16. And we had told the officials multiple times, like, "Hey, I'm 15. Is this going to be a problem?" And nobody said anything. So unfortunately, the one time we went to go run it, I was too young. Um, so got to go back now that I'm old enough and see how we can do.
Yeah, for sure. And then going back, the racing series you have done, uh, I put together, I think there's like three forms of racing you've done now, like open wheel, dirt car, and stock car. So I guess
Mhm.
starting with open wheel, what would you say is the most challenging part of that type of racing?
Yeah, the open wheel, like the road course stuff. Um, is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, open wheel.
Uh, yeah, I think the hardest part about those is it's all about being on the right team. We tried something new. We tried to do it by ourselves, and I'm super thankful that we even did. It's just one of those looking back on it, uh, because these cars are so setup dependent. You need to be on a team that's been doing this for years that has the setups. That way, instead of me coming in after practice or qualifying, wondering about the setup or you know a whole bunch of things, I need to just worry about my driving. Um, and so I say that, but then I'm kind of glad we did it by ourselves because now I have the knowledge a little bit more of setting up the cars. Um, so it's a double edged sword, right? It's kind of both ways, and I think in the long run, doing what we did is for sure the better thing, as I've gained a lot more knowledge from it.
Yeah, for sure. And then I guess what's the most challenging part of dirt car racing?
Adapting to the track. I mentioned earlier that the track changes so much, and especially when you're farther up front in the field, because you can't see what's going on. Right, the most dangerous place to be is in first because you don't know what's going on behind you, and all it takes is one lap of somebody finding more grip than you, and now you've just lost the race. So it's definitely scary to think about, sometimes going in wondering, hey, do I have the right line here? But unfortunately, you don't really want to change anything until somebody comes flying by you. So that's definitely the hardest part. Just knowing that anything could happen, and there's no mirrors, so you can't see if somebody's moved down and found a better line than you. You just got to kind of go with it and see what you can do.
Yeah, that's crazy you guys don't have mirrors. And then I also studied that you guys don't have spotters as well, like NASCAR, which is crazy.
Yeah, the Silver Crown does, but definitely, yeah, that is the only thing. Silver Crown is the only dirt series that allows spotters. So you have to be careful. Even when you're passing somebody, you got to make sure that they know you're there because things can get flipped on their head real quickly, um, just because somebody didn't know you were there, and or you thought you had somebody clear and you really didn't. So you just got to be careful, but it doesn't take that long to get used to. um, I prefer it because it kind of teaches you to, you're on your own, right? If something happens in NASCAR or whatever and the spotter, all of a sudden the radios aren't working, well, I don't have to worry about that because I'm going to race like I normally would without one.
Yeah, for sure. And then as far as like dirt racing goes, have you ever or do you often perform slide jobs?
Oh yeah, yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah, they look fun every time someone does it. But and then also going back to the mirrors, would you say that dirt car racers don't have mirrors because they would get dirty anyways, like throughout the race?
Yeah, I think the big one is, it's kind of weird, but I think it would be, to me, the first thought that comes to mind is tradition. People have never used mirrors, right? And that's kind of why a lot of people like the dirt stuff. I mean, we still, there's no starters in the car. You have to get bump started, right? There's like a little lever and you got to put it in gear and then have like a side by side push you off. And, we have the technology to change that, but it's tradition. That's how things have always been. And if you ask me, I look at the mirror situation the same way. And I don't want mirrors. I've raced with mirrors, I've raced without them. And I think dirt racing belongs with no mirrors and no spotter, just you alone with your thoughts trying to figure it out.
Yeah, that's a very interesting perspective, like how you don't they actually prefer no mirrors, but I feel like it's good too because then your eyes are just right at the like your windshield instead of looking at mirrors, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I've definitely fallen victim at the beginning of my, road course career journey, because that was the first time I ever had mirrors. I fell victim to kind of looking at them, not too much, but I could see how it would be an issue, and I know people that they look in their mirrors all the time. And I know sometimes I got to the point where I would just turn the mirror in so I don't have it, because I don't want it. It kind of distracts you almost because then you're not worried about what's going on in front of you. You're worried about that guy behind you. Is he faster? Am I pulling from him? What's going on?
Yeah, for sure. I think the in NASCAR, like mirrors are most beneficial is definitely on super speedways like Daytona and Talladega, um, and stuff like that. But and then so I mentioned um I asked you the most challenging parts of open wheel racing dirt car, but how about stock car? You only have like one race so far, so
Mhm.
there's not too much to for experience there. But I guess that one race you had at Mid Ohio, what was the most challenging part of that day?
It was a really hectic day to begin with. The practice was really dry, and then it actually rained on us in qualifying. Um, but I use that to my advantage because I know how Mid Ohio gets when it gets wet. Um, Again, just because I've been fortunate enough to drive that condition before, and that place is crazy in the wet. So I kind of knew what I had to do, um, and I was able to qualify 16th, um, which was definitely a little farther up than I probably should have been, but it happens. And as far as the race goes, I think the hardest thing was it just gets hot. There's power steering, so you don't have to worry about, that, but it gets really hot in the car. They say they have fans, but the fans just blowing around the hot air. So definitely you gotta be ready for the heat. And it was in the middle of the summer when I did it. And I'm glad I did because now I know if I get another call or another chance to go up there and do something with a NASCAR or even ARCA, I know what to expect and I know what I need to work on.
Yeah, for sure. That really interesting. Like I always wonder about the heat because um with NASCAR, but it's just crazy how like physically fit you have to be and like just getting adjusted to because it's yeah, it's like it's completely different than other racing series, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. It is definitely different. You know, with the open wheel stuff, there's no power steering in that. So a big one would be, cardio, as and strength training, where now with the NASCAR stuff, uh, you got to get ready for the hot stuff. So I know that I work out at Pit Fit here in Indy. It's a gym specialized for race car drivers. I mean, you can walk in and you're working out next to Scott Dixon, uh, and it's awesome. And they specialize everything you do for what you're racing at the time. So we all know that if I'm doing NASCAR, you got to get in the sauna. You got to work on the heat training and just be ready for it.
Yeah, for sure. And then as far as like car numbers go, you probably had a lot of different ones over the years, but what do you remember like the very first one you had, like in your first ever race?
Yeah, the first ever number I ran was a 3B, um, and that was my own. Um, three, just because I'm Trey. I'm named after my dad and granddad, and I go by Trey for short, just because it's easier. And then the B for Burke. It's big on dirt racing. A lot of people put a letter with a number, um, and so that was my first one. I wore that for a long, long time, and I think I still would. If I have the choice, that's probably what I'm going to go to. I got a couple options, but yeah, that was the first one, and it means a lot to me.
Yeah, for sure. And then throughout your family history, what's been like the most historic car number for you guys?
So I know my dad used he was 4B because that's what my great grandfather did. Um, and my granddad has also bounced around, just because he was. Yeah, I see him as the best of the four of us, and so he was driving for a lot of different people, kind of similar to what I'm doing. And it was really funny. At one point, he actually drove, and he was the number 63 as well, which is something I've done. And he ran, I think 33 was the one was his number that he just kind of always used and still uses. But if I had to pick something, I'd probably go with the 4B, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, that's really cool. Um, and then in 2017, 2018, and 2019, you drove a lot of dirt racing, for actually your family-owned Burke Motorsports. Um, so I guess what did it mean to run with your family, like a family-owned team?
It was awesome. It's a lot of that was up and down the road, and it was just me, my mom, and dad. So we had a lot of fun. That's definitely where a lot of my early learning came from. Um, as much as I hate to admit it, my dad knows a lot, and so does my granddad. Them two combined have just so many years of racing experience, and so having them in my corner, helping me develop early on was just huge. Um, and you know, they helped me kind of make minimize the mistakes that they've already made, and it was awesome. It was so fun.
Yeah, that is very awesome. Like, because that's your early stages of your career more, so that's really awesome that they help catapult you through now to where you are now.
For sure.
And then, um, race car drivers generally are required to be on the road for long periods of time traveling to races. So I guess how have you adjusted to that lifestyle?
Um, I'm used to it. I think just because I've done it so much. Texas is a massive state, and so even though I live in Indiana now, Texas just you can drive for 8 hours and still be in the state of Texas. So I'm used to it. I've got my things. Nowadays, I'll help drive sometimes. I'll listen to music, watch a movie, watch YouTube, take a nap. Um, it's somehow easier up here in Indiana. I think just because you could drive for 8 hours and be in a whole bunch of different states. So you can look forward to hey, in 2 hours we're in Ohio, instead of another 4 hours and we're still in Texas. So it's different, but I think I'm just used to it at this point.
Yeah, for sure. And then you mentioned you grew up in Texas. Do you miss, or like, which Which like state do you like to live in more now, since you experienced Indiana or Texas?
Texas to me is always home. I think I'm proud that I'm from Texas. If I wasn't racing, I would definitely be living in Texas, but Indiana is the place to be. So as far as racing goes, I have to be here, and I do like it here. This is turned into my second home, and it's awesome. Yeah, I graduated high school from up here. I moved here when I was 17. So I think the biggest downside, funny enough, is just the weather. I'm not used to it, and so when it gets cold, like it's going to do here in a couple months, I will. I don't enjoy it the most, but it's what it's the sacrifice you got to make to be up here, and I don't mind that in the long run.
Yeah, for sure. And then as far as like tracks go, what would you say has been your favorite track you've raced on over the years?
I'd have to break that down by category. I think on dirt, Springfield for sure. Pavement, we just did Gateway with the Silver Crown car. I've done it in the Indy Pro car, and that was not, it was okay. But Gateway with the Silver Crown car was really fun. Um, and then the road course, probably Road America. You get going pretty fast there. Some really long straightaways, some high speed corners, and it's just a beautiful facility. If I don't know if you've ever been, but I recommend a lot of people go to Road America. Obviously, you can't, you know, count out the Speedway here at IMS, but Road America has a lot of character as far as the road course goes, and I really like that.
Yeah, for sure. I've heard a lot of things about Road America, how unique it is, like the facility and stuff. So I can see why you chose that, but it's too bad that I heard that not even the Xfinity series is going there next year, so that's kind of sad.
Yeah, yeah, it's sad, and I don't mind these changes, to the schedule. I know IndyCar just dropped Texas, and I don't mind these, right? Even if they were good races, but you have to replace it with something equally as good. I'm all for going to new places or somewhere we haven't been in a while, but you have to almost live up to the hype of the other track. If like Texas and IndyCar was a really good race this past year. Both of them were. So, um, IndyCar has a lot on their plate in order to make sure that um, I think they're going to Milwaukee now. So they got to make sure Milwaukee's really good, or I know some fans probably be pretty upset about that.
Yeah, for sure. And then staying in the topic of tracks, what's one track in your wish list you would love to race on one day?
Ooh, probably the Indianapolis Oval, just because it's the oval. Only IndyCar runs there. Um, which means you got to be in the 500 to do it. I wish NASCAR would go back because that would be equally as awesome for the Brickyard. Um, it's just as of now, I don't think that's going to happen. But if I could wake up tomorrow and run any race, it would probably be the 500 at the Speedway.
Yeah, that's very cool. But actually, I think it was announced like a couple months ago or a month ago or maybe that they're actually going back to the Oval next year for Cup, the Brickyard 400.
Okay, good. Yeah, I don't know. I don't check my phone that much, but yeah, that's good as it should be. That's what needs to happen, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited they're going back. It just brings because it's so traditional there. So like I feel like bringing back the Brickyard 400 is definitely I think really beneficial for the sport.
I agree. I agree for sure.
And then as far as your racing style, are you more of I guess it depends on the car handles too, but do you enjoy going hard on entry more or slower on entry?
Um, when the car is right, I like to drive it in there, um, and I'm okay with it getting sideways. I know at Winchester, the weight jackers actually blew out just because it happens, and so the car was really loose. But that place has some really high banks, and I was okay with that. We were really quick. We started towards the back, and I was, we were well within the top 10 at only halfway through the race, and I'm okay with that. If the car on the pavement side is kind of tight going in, it's not the worst thing in the world. I'd rather, if anything, I'd rather it be a little freer on exit, just because you have some more room to work with, as far as driving it and getting on throttle.
Yeah, for sure. And then I did some studying on your website. You actually listen to Rooster by Alice in Chains before every race. So I guess how did that song become your go-to song for pre-race?
um, I think it was my dad. I think he had like the CD of it of um, I think just the whole album Dirt, but he would always play that song. It was really funny because he'd always turn it up right as he'd turn the volume way up, as it would get really heavy. And I'd for some reason always be really embarrassed by it, but I also really liked it. It was really funky. And I think that was just at the point where, I was just kind of getting introduced to more music that wasn't on the radio, and it stuck with me. It's a good song. I, you know, have a lot of good memories with it.
Yeah, that's very cool. And then growing up in your early days, who would you say growing up was your favorite driver?
Um, I like AJ Foyt. Uh, my granddad and probably AJ Foyt are the two. Just because for AJ Foyt, he's done it. He came from the Texas, and he was a dirt racer turned IndyCar legend, and so he's kind of a good role model in the terms of that it's definitely possible. And then he would even run some stock car stuff. So you know, AJ Foyt is just such a big, inspiration that, if you look at it in reality, it wasn't that long ago. And so, it can definitely be done.
Yeah, for sure. Um, and then as a kid, did you try any other sports throughout your childhood, or was it just all racing?
Yeah, I did a lot. I ran cross country. I played baseball, basketball, and football. Um, I was probably the best at baseball. I was a pitcher and a catcher and first baseman, and I did that for a long time. I actually worked with like an ex MLB player, Archie Corbin, and so um, if I wasn't a race car driver, I would definitely be a baseball player. I know it killed my dad when I told him like, hey, I want to stop all of this, for racing, and I think he saw it coming, but I don't think he saw it coming so soon. And I think he was also worried that if I hated racing, in a couple years, I was going to regret not continuing to play everything. But I knew what I wanted, and no offense, but it was not baseball, basketball, or football.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned your baseball positions. Which one was your favorite you played?
Um, I played first baseman the most, but I think I really liked pitching, just because I, had worked with a really good pitching coach, Archie for it, and I loved pitching. It was just really fun. I have some, kind of long legs, so longer arms as well, and that, it made it pretty good. I know I was, if I stuck with it, I would have probably been a pretty decent baseball player. Probably been a little vertically challenged, but you could kind of deal with that. So,
Yeah, that's very cool. And then, do you enjoy watching any other sports than NASCAR or just racing in general?
yeah, I'm a big Astros fan. My beloved Astros just got knocked out by the Texas Rangers, but that's okay. A Texas team is moving on. But yeah, as far as other sports go, I'm definitely a big Houston Astros guy with baseball.
Yeah, that's very cool. And then, well, they did win the World Series last year, so I guess that's something
Yeah,
to celebrate about.
for sure, for sure.
And then, and then I guess outside of racing, what do you enjoy doing in your free time?
I work part time at a go kart track. It's easy, kind of helps pay rent. Nice little source of income, and they work with all of my racing, my schedule, and everything. So that's awesome. Um, I have a girlfriend. She goes to college about 40 minutes away, so I can see her pretty often. And I do some other side jobs. I've got one actually later today at the Speedway. I'm kind of giving pace car rides on the oval. So that's pretty cool. But I definitely stay busy with stuff. Um, Work is probably the big one just because I'd rather be doing that than sitting at home watching TV.
Yeah, for sure. And then looking ahead, like maybe like this weekend or the weeks to come, what is your next scheduled race?
Yeah, so I haven't even really announced it yet just because it's kind of just been done. But I know Davey Hamilton Jr. is putting on the open wheel showdown in Vegas on December 1st and 2nd. And we actually are going to run it. It's a pavement wing sprint car as opposed to the non-wing that I've been running. Um, and that's a huge thanks to Rick at RFL Solutions. Um, Here in Indy. He's helping us a lot with getting out there. It's racing's not cheap, and he's our newest partner, and big thank you to him. I know that we would have probably gotten it done, but not nearly as easily as we have now with him. And I'll be running for Jimmy Waters. So again, kind of got hooked up with him through Davey Hamilton Jr. and Cody Swanson. So, uh, if you know the right people, good stuff will happen.
Yeah, it's very awesome. And then I guess now we can end with some. I just have a few fun questions here to end the interview. Um, so I guess the first one, have you ever been overseas?
Um, no, that is yeah, that's probably like the biggest racing thing I haven't done. Even on my vacation, I haven't really, been overseas. I wish.
Which which country would you most like to visit?
Am I racing or am I just going on vacation?
I guess both.
Um, to race in, I know the UK has a lot of really good, open wheel series. Um, I have some buddies that are actually over there racing right now for Team USA. And probably just the UK. There's a lot of experience out there. There's a lot of good opportunity. As far as vacation goes, probably like Australia, New Zealand. I got some friends that are from there, and um, you know, maybe they'll take me back with them one day. But yeah, that would if I'm just going on vacation, probably New Zealand.
Yeah, that's very cool. And then next one, who's your all-time favorite Disney character?
Oh, my all-time favorite Disney character is um is Lilo and Stitch Disney?
Um, I
I gotta
think
pull up a list. Hold on, you gotta give me a second here. Oh, wait, is Cars Disney? Or is that's Pixar? Never mind.
yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Pixar, yeah.
Hold
Uh,
on. Sorry, I'm not a big. Yeah, Stitch is probably Lilo and Stitch. I watched that movie a whole lot just because my older cousins. So I got a big connection with that one. Um, yeah, that'd probably be it. I'm kind of going down a list right now. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go with that.
yeah, that's very cool. Yeah, I remember watching that too. And then what's your favorite ice cream flavor?
Oof, man, that changes so often. Right now, chocolate chip cookie dough.
Oh,
But
that's actually mine as well.
that's good. Yeah, that's good. That could change. I like a lot. Sometimes it's just normal vanilla. Other times, I know recently I've just gotten like the sea salt and caramel. I'm not a big chocolate fan. Like chocolate ice cream, I'll have like chocolate in it. I guess if that makes sense. It's like mint chocolate chip. I'm okay with. Um, but yeah, right now probably chocolate chip cookie dough.
Yeah, it's very cool. Yeah, it's really cool that we have the same
Yeah.
favorite flavor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely just a go-to there. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, I guess wrapping up this interview, the last thing, is there a charity or cause that you support that you like to highlight for us?
Um, um, man, put me on the spot like that. Um, I guess like a big like awareness would be probably like breast cancer awareness would be a big one. Anything cancer related. Um, Not many people know, but my mom had a small cancer, I think a couple years ago, and she's perfectly fine. But I'm a big, big on, not having, cancer. I know that, that's a big, I guess, thing. It's a very broad statement, but, you know, breast cancer awareness is a big one. That's probably the go-to when somebody says something like that to me, just because I somewhat have a, personal relation with it. Um, so I know what that's like, and you know, I don't want that for anybody else.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, we can definitely highlight that for you. Um, but yeah, thanks for joining us, Trey. It's been a
Yeah,
great time getting to know you more and your racing journey and your ambitions to go NASCAR one day. It's really cool. But
yeah,
yeah, thanks for joining us, Trey, and yeah, I hope you wish you the best of luck the races to come.
yeah. Oh, and before I forget, I know because this also goes with the Las Vegas thing with Rick and RFL. Also, the Wings and Wheels Foundation. You kind of got me with the foundation. It's a big racing foundation that kind of helps up and coming drivers um, in terms of getting funding, and they've helped a lot with the Silver Crown stuff, um, and they definitely have helped us with this Vegas deal, and I'm excited to keep working with them. So I uh, I knew I was forgetting something, and that's what it was. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but very important to me that I mentioned them.
Awesome, yeah. Well, thanks, Trey. This has been great.